Hi, yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak. And most of all, thank you to all the other speakers and everyone else spoken to as well. It's a really great learning opportunity for me. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about this, which I've slightly changed the title to, because this is the name of the project, which is Beyond Meat and Memes. And I'll give some more details on that later. But this is the first outing entirely for anything from this project. So it is the caveat that it's very provisional at the moment and very interested in kind of feedback and ideas. As I said, as was mentioned in the in the title, we're kind of looking at Instagram and TikTok and sort of looking at trying to map out what kind of discourses are there present. And I don't have time to talk about the sort of full extent of it, and we haven't finished the analysis yet, but one really key one is mostly what I'm going to focus on today, which is kind of summarised with that meme, which is eat beans, not beings. So kind of bear that in mind, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So just a little bit about the project and about the rest of the team who couldn't be here today. It's Joseph Ibrahim and Jess Drake, who are both also based at Leeds Beckett as well, who are working on the project with me. The project itself is a multimodal critical discourse analysis of Instagram and TikTok specifically. So we're focusing on image and video kind of based content. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about what we mean by critical discourse analysis in a second, but multimodal in the sense that it's text, image, video, audio, etc. It's been funded by, very generously by a small grant from the British Academy, which has really helped us with the project. But overall what we're trying to understand is that kind of question: how are Instagram and TikTok used to promote veganism in a very kind of broad terms? So we're looking at discursive strategies that are used, we're trying to identify particular platform affordances, ways in which the platforms specifically are used, and how elements of discourse become influential on those platforms. Really, this is actually just what I've said as well, but other than just to kind of add that this is essentially really, this is a large-ish kind of pilot project which we're hoping to develop further. So we took a theoretical and purposive sample. We were looking for particular things that we wanted to investigate further through using hashtags and collecting all of our data in 1 month in Veganuary 2024. So it is a limited and it is a partial kind of data set, but I think is highlighting some interesting things. So this is a discourse analysis, and I won't go into all the detail about the specifics of this, because we'll focus on hopefully the more interesting stuff. But just to give you a sense of what we did, and we developed this from some work by Thurclough and also Machin and Mayer on doing multimodal critical discourse analysis. But we're looking at various elements of the images, of the videos, of the text, and trying to kind of build up to understand what the kind of the broader, higher level kind of discourses are. So we looked at so the green boxes are some very specific things around, some of these are slightly technical terms, but around denotation, intertextuality. So what kinds of things are in the text, in the image, what are the attributes? So are there particular people, particular objects, particular animals, particular colours, that kind of thing? What are the locations? How do they refer to other texts? What things tend to be salient, kind of prominent in an image or a video or in the text? And then they kind of build up to a sort of a slightly higher level of abstraction about connotation. What do those things mean? What is that meaning potential? How is the language structure, how is kind of sentence structure, paragraph structure, whatever, used to kind of construct these ideas? And then higher levels of what genre, what kind of posts are these things? How do they construct a sense of style, which confusingly these terms really means kind of identities, subjectivities for people. And all that's building up to the top level, the most kind of abstract level in some sense, most analytical level of discourse, which is really what I'm going to focus on talking today, rather than going into all that detail. But some things from the other elements will come through, and you'll see the kind of colour coding on the other slides. Really the big discourse, the main one that I want to talk about today really is, in some senses maybe seems almost kind of obvious and kind of banal for kind of vegan postings, is animals are subjects. Animals are thinking, feeling beings with individuality, emotional lives, those kinds of things. Just on this post, just in a very basic sense, we can kind of see this. This is obviously using a it's actually a detail from a painting, I think it looks like, but that's been edited. So we've got a lamb holding a sign there, eat plants, not me. So it's kind of offering a kind of a subjectivity to the animal they're speaking in a literal sense. It's also obviously playing on sort of iconography around protests, holding up a sign, that kind of thing. So there's kind of speech and interior life, rights, subjectivity or whatever attributed to the animal. But I think it's also there in the composition of the image that's been either produced or selected. It's kind of very easy to kind of emotionally connect with through the way that the lamb is being represented. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at, but I'll go into a little bit more detail on a couple of others. This is from a TikTok post. It is a video, obviously. I haven't really got time to show the video, but principally what the video shows is this woman interacting with a cow, essentially kind of petting the cow, stroking the cow. The cow is sort of purring like a cat, and then there's little bits of text on it as well. But that's the kind of the main idea. So I think, again, this kind of overarching discourse that the animal is a subject, it has interiority, it has a kind of internal life and an individuality. But if we look at some of the aspects of the kind of the composition, and with that kind of bottom level of the green squares, again, I won't go into full detail on this, but this highlights some of the things that we did find commonalities, even across different kinds of posts. Tend to find a lot of kind of strong colours, often this is actually quite, especially in the video, it appears quite saturated. We often get this kind of shallow focus, with a kind of a blurry kind of background, again, in different kinds of images, which I think obviously helps us to kind of put those two, the two subjects in kind of high salience. But also, I think it also kind of has an element, especially in some other posts, of kind of universalizing, where we're focusing on those as individual subjects rather than the kind of context as such. This is taking place on a farm, but it's very clean, looking, bright, airy kind of farm, and this is in contrast to other posts which are representing kind of factory farming and things are deliberately presented in a negative fashion. They look dark and dirty and that kind of thing. I think in terms of what this kind of starts to mean, it's obviously countering notions of speciesism. It's kind of representing the cow in a fashion which is sort of somewhat similar to a pet, to a cat. So breaking down those kinds of boundaries in terms of style, and it's offering up a certain kinds of subjectivity that we might be able to connect with. That's in terms of the woman there, as someone who's kind of caring and emotional, but also sort of vibrant and happy. It's a sort of, can't quite see in that image, but quite kind of outdoorsy kind of clothing and that kind of thing, but also feminine as well, which is something we'll come back to in a minute. But also constructing and offering a subjectivity for the cow themselves as well, as something that someone that enjoys, can get enjoyment from the situation, can feel pleasure and connection with a human being in a similar way to a cat or a dog might, but also as another thinking, feeling being as well. So, another example. This one's actually an Instagram post, but is also a video, and I think probably did crop up on TikTok as well. There's a lot of kind of cross-pollination. This video sort of tells the story of these two pigs who are rescued by this farm sanctuary, and shows a little bit about their day-to-day life. Again, we've got a quite sort of brightly lit outdoor, again, vibrant colours, quite saturated colours again, which is kind of another commonality. This kind of constructs this notion of sort of, I think, of veganism as being kind of bright, fun, caring, etc. And with the audience encouraged to kind of identify with those kinds of subjectivities that are offered there. Again, it is a woman. There's a kind of a friendliness. It's not confrontational. A sort of a vibrancy, that kind of thing. But crucially also, the pigs themselves have a subjectivity constructed for them. They have names. They're referred to as someone. One of them in particular is referred to as a mama's boy, something again we'll come back to in a moment, because of his kind of connection with the woman. They're referred to as jumper pigs because they literally jumped out of a truck that was transporting them. So again, they're kind of constructed in terms of having this kind of subjectivity, this eternal life, this kind of drive to survive and that kind of thing. And again, yeah, the kind of the identity, the subjectivity on offer for kind of humans is this quite useful, compassionate, vibrant, sort of fun-loving kind of idea as well. So the kind of, I think the animals are subjects kind of discourse is kind of, potentially that might end up being the sort of the meta discourse almost. There is a kind of secondary discourse, or a second rather discourse I want to discuss. Analytically, we've not quite figured out whether this is kind of sort of a sub-discourse of the other ones, or if it's kind of a side one, but it's certainly interconnected. And it's also interesting, and so this is something which came out quite prominently across the data set that we looked at as well, which again, we've characterized, and the phrasing may change, but carnism is violence against women or motherhood. And this kind of intersects, I think, in some interesting ways with some of the previous posts as well. So this is quite a common sort of genre of post, really, which is a sort of a celebrity-focused kind of statement. Really, it's a repurposing of a statement from Natalie Portman that she gave in a speech, and then obviously presented in this kind of, in this particular kind of meme fashion with the image and the text on it. She tends to crop up quite a lot in this data. She's a fairly kind of prominent, sort of outspoken vegan advocate, and there's a lot of things going on here, I think. So again, if we look at the sort of the more base level of literally what's in the image, there's a lot of, again, it's quite vibrant, but there's a lot of sort of soft pinks and quite feminine denotating kind of colours, this kind of thing. Smiling, again, that kind of non-confrontational kind of thing, this kind of connection with nature, with the floral dress and these kinds of things. In terms of the actual, there's a bit more language to kind of unpack because it has been repurposed from this speech in this one, and you probably can't quite read it on there, but what the statement there says is, only after I became active in women's issues did I realise that my veganism was related to those very issues. She said, dairy and eggs don't just come from cows and chickens, they come from female cows and female chickens. We're exploiting female bodies and abusing the magic of female animals to create eggs and milk. So this is making this very direct sort of intersectional connection with femininity and with feminism and with women and with motherhood as well, I think. So again, it's sort of deliberately lexically making this connection between women, between the particular animals which are exploited, and actually the word animal isn't so much kind of present in there. It's also, we can see this as well as being this kind of celebrity quotation type genre. It's a call to action. It's asking us to be involved in that way. And I think, yeah, again, crucially making this connection with femininity, with feminist concerns, with being caring. Again, in this largely not with this kind of confrontational kind of approach. And again, I think there's some interesting comparisons to make here with other kinds of posts. We did get more of this kind of post rather than so much from kind of more masculine representation. That might just be because of how the algorithms work for our kind of accounts and things like that. But I think there's a difference between other posts, which I feel, we haven't studied this, but feel are a bit more prominent maybe on platforms such as YouTube, the kind of slightly more confrontational kind of debate me, bro, kind of Joey Carbstrong kind of thing of going out into public and facing off against people. It's a slightly different kind of representation. So just to kind of summarise, these are very much provisional findings, but I think there's some interesting things here. Again, very interested to know any thoughts on this. Essentially, the big discourse, animals are subjects, they have emotions and inner lives, seems to be the kind of the meta kind of discourse. There's subject positions which are presented and offered up to an audience that is caring, vibrant, colourful, feminine, seems to be quite prominent. Animals are often subjectified in terms of being children, mama's boys, and as parents, as with the previous slide with the Natalie Portman quote. And motherhood is often centralised, both for humans and animals, and this came up in different contexts elsewhere as well. If you want any more info on the project, just launched a project website, which is beyondmeatmemes.wordpress.com. You can also get it through that QR code. We've also just launched a couple of a TikTok and an Instagram account. They're both at Beyond Meat Memes. We are having a dissemination event in Leeds in March. It would be great to have some people there. And if you want more info, you can look at those places or get in touch with me. My email address is there. Thank you very much for listening.
So any questions?
Hey, you mentioned that some of the posts that you found might be automated.
Sorry to the people online. Yes, you mentioned that some of the posts you might find might be constrained by the accounts you're using to find them. So are you just kind of like setting up a new just regular account? Yeah, have you explored using like social listening tools? Like the kind of tools that brands use to monitor social media kind of more en masse and get it to, it can kind of get round algorithms if you're looking for specific types of content.
Yes, so we are looking at that. So we've not done that for this. As I mentioned, it's essentially kind of a big pilot. We're looking at a second stage, which would use some of that, use some social network analysis, and ideally some kind of qualitative work with kind of both sort of posters and audiences as well. But yeah, it's a great suggestion. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So, again, also, I guess, in the kind of suggestion-y kind of category, and also I think maybe in Jack's presentation as well, I wonder whether you'd also looked at like memes that specifically kind of talk like sort of within the vegan movement that kind of almost are used as ways of debating different approaches to veganism as well. It's just something I've kind of casually been interested in, like how, like you sort of talked about the motherhood, the connection to femininity, and how some vegans kind of oppose that kind of approach and kind of, quite anti-intersectional, and there's that kind of debate, whether you'd kind of looked at that or think about looking at that as well, those sort of debates over memes between vegans as well as sort of appealing to non-vegans.
Yes, no, thank you, that's a really good point. Yeah, so that stuff has come up in it. I suppose we haven't actually sort of conceptually sort of trying to understand how they relate yet, but that's a really good point. Yeah, I think that's something we should think about. Yeah, and I think Jack's kind of framework of thinking about that in that kind of the archipelago and things is really useful. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for that really interesting overview. I'm interested in whether you are going to include any kind of evaluative element of it, of like what kind of works for those, whether, that's in essence, because I think it would be useful for individual activists and also maybe other groups that are trying to use these platforms to know what particular things are successful or kind of less successful in ideally encouraging people to actually engage and like change their minds.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. Yes, again, that's probably going to be felt like the next stage of the project, and this is, to some extent, it's a kind of a bit of a proof of concept of a section of it. That is absolutely something, we want to do, and again, that's hopefully what we can do with some of those other methods, the social listening stuff, some of the social network analysis, and some of the work with kind of activists and with users or audiences, if you like. So yes, hopefully that will be kind of in the next stage, and that we can use this as a basis for this is the sort of the mapping aspect, and then what do people think about that? I think that's going to be really crucial, and to kind of to engage with that deal again, which kind of Jack spoke about as well of the silos, the kind of the filter bubbles, and what are these speaking to? Because we have a kind of an instinctive sense that some of this is kind of talking quite internally to audiences, but yeah, we need to kind of investigate that a little bit further, I think. Yeah, thank you.
Josh? Just the last question.
Thanks. It's not obvious to me that a picture of Natalie Portman with a pull quote is a meme. So how are you defining meme for the purposes of this project?
No, so really, obviously, meme is in the title beyond meat and meat. So we're not literally just looking at memes. We're looking at social media posts essentially on Instagram and TikTok. So obviously, they're not all kind of memes. TikTok isn't really meme-y as such in the way that Instagram is. So yeah, that is in the title, but it's sort of obviously the title is sort of a slightly silly play on two terms, the brand and also the notion of memes, but it is, it's looking beyond those things. But it is, it's not just about memes. It is, I mean, really, that's closer to like an image macro or something, maybe. Which, and obviously, the first post, eat beans, not beings, is explicitly that. So yeah, we realise that kind of comes under the different genres. As I said, that genre really is a kind of partly it's a kind of a call to action, or maybe a kind of a celebrity quotation genre, if that's what we might call it. But yeah, it's not a meme exactly. No, that's right. Thank you, though. Great. Thank you.